Okay, so I'm back again. Before I start the talk, we still have lots of sandwiches. I wouldn't want to take them home. So after the talks, please grab something to eat. One thing I want to add to the voice agent, because I know there are some voice over IP people here. 11 Labs offers a SIP trunk. So you can just send the numbers to it, and it's connected to the agent, and you can talk it, and it's acceptable Austrian dialect. I mean, it's not Austrian hardcore dialect, but it sounds Austrian enough to not annoy people. And if you want to listen to it, I have a phone number connected to it, and we can try it later. So, I'll try to answer what the hell MCP is. But first, a little bit about me, because I didn't introduce myself. So my name is Christian Livadaro. I'm an IT nerd. I started with the C64, and I have a passion for automations because I'm lazy, and for IT security because I like breaking things. And also, I didn't put it on the slide. I'm an N8N ambassador for Vienna, so that's why I'm standing here. I have two mini hackers, which I promised I'll mention in my talks, because they're also partially the reason why I'm standing here, because I told them they have to do something outside of their comfort zone, and they asked me, what the hell am I doing? So I decided to stand in front of a lot of people and talk about stuff. Yeah, so now to the MCP stuff. Has anybody tried something with MCP? Okay. A few. So for those who don't know what MCP is, right now when you're using AI, it's like having an assistant that you can talk to, and it can give you sometimes useful, sometimes not so useful instruction, but it can't actually do anything except if you create agents, but that's I'll get back to that. And when you start using MCP, it's like giving an assistant the keys to your office and leaving in your office all kind of post-it notes and tell it, okay, use this thing to do this. Use that other thing to do this. For example, use this tool to create suppliers. And then you just leave and send your assistant a message. Can you please create this supplier in our database? And as a normal human being, if you get this message from your boss, you would say, what the fuck, I got no instructions, I have no idea how to do it. But then you'll find the instruction, okay, use this tool. You look at the tool and it says, okay, it needs a supplier name, it needs an address, it needs an email. Okay, I can do that. And you can extract the data and insert in the database. And this is how basically MCP is enabling to connect your LLM to your tools. So when an LLM interacts with the MCP server, the LLM, like Claude or ChatGPT as of last week, or N8N, would be the MCP client, because there's a server, there has to also be a client. And when you use Claude, for example, and ask it to do something that it has no idea what you're talking about, it will see it has a MCP server. Then it asks the MCP server, okay, what tools do you have at your disposal? What resources do you have at your disposal? And what parameters do you need for those tools? And what prompts do you have? And then it can work with that. You can then take a very simple interaction with Claude and ask it to create the supplier in a database. And then the MCP server, as I mentioned, would connect, the MCP client, Claude, would then connect to your server and tell it, yo, tell me what tools do you have? And then take these tools into account with the prompt that you just gave it and try to figure out which tools it has to use to accomplish what you asked it to do. But then why not just use agents? The thing with agents is it's not a standard, it's a one-off. So you just create one agent to do this task. And maybe somewhere else you need also an agent that does the same thing. You will start repeating your agents, duplicating prompts, and the MCP server comes like a reusable box where you've got all your tools inside of it, all the prompts that are required for those tools, and you can reuse it. Because you can also use a MCP server as a tool for an agent. So not only can you talk with Claude or ChatGPT desktop, you can also use it in your AI agent, the same tools that you would use in Claude. So in my example, I'll be showing after connecting Claude to an MCP server, we will go and do some chatting with our accounting. And yeah, as I mentioned, ChatGPT introduced this MCP standard as well. It calls it connectors. And yeah, and what I also should mention, so far as I know, for now it's just working on desktop. It doesn't work on the phone editions of ChatGPT or Claude. So yeah, and then you can have some very simple workflows in n8n, connect them to Claude, and do some very interesting things with very little effort. So in my example, I will be chatting with my accounting, and as a backend for the database, I'm using CTable. CTable is like Airtable, but it's self-hosted because apparently I love the pain and suffering and hosting all the tools myself and also run my own servers. And also, since Nadia wrote in a LinkedIn post that if we believe all the AI creators, then the whole internet is running on Airtable, so I just thought to add another tool to the mix so it doesn't get boring. This is a very, very basic and simple n8n workflow to create a supplier. It has a node that's the trigger when it's called from another workflow, which also has defined which parameters it requires to be able to create the supplier. And it's just name, address, and email. And then we have a node to create the supplier in CTable. So that's all this workflow would do. It gets these three things, creates a supplier, and it's done. And now creating an MCP server trigger and adding this tool or this workflow as tool to the MCP server. And if you look at the tool, it's just a very simple prompt where it says, call this tool when you need to create a supplier. And the three parameters, the name, address, and email, are set to defined by the model. This means the model will get these parameters from the data you gave it and then call this tool to do its job. And if we just take a very simple example, I'm using Claude Desktop and I'm telling it, okay, create this new supplier with this address and with this email address. And you can see, the second line there, that it called the create supplier tool through the MCP server. So it connected to the MCP server, asked it, hey, what tools do you have? What parameters do these tools need? And then decides, oh, he asked me to create a supplier. I have a tool, it's called create supplier, and it needs these parameters. So I'll just do that. And as you can see, it also gives a brief summary of what it's done and also returns the ID in the database. But there was nowhere an instruction telling it what data to extract from my prompt or anything. It was just a little prompt, call this tool to create a supplier, and then my prompt telling it to create one. And it's that easy. And based on the reaction here, a lot of people are very young because only the older people would know this ad. And also, so okay, I see a few people. Yeah, I'm also that old. But let's not trust the AI. Let's look in the database. And indeed, it created the supplier, I told it. So let's go ahead and add a few more tools. A tool to create invoices, a tool to search supplier by names, and a tool to list all suppliers. And all these workflows are, again, very simple. So the create invoice tool has also 4 parameters, an invoice number, amount, the currency, and the supplier. And the list all supplier tools is even simpler. It just lists all suppliers from the database and returns it to the LLM. And search for supplier by name, as it says, it gets a name, it looks in the database, searches for that supplier, returns it to the LLM. And I'll present it as a video because I just wanted to be sure that it's working. So here I dragged 3 random PDF invoices from the internet, dragged it into Claude, and I just told it, add these invoices and suppliers to the database. I didn't give it any other prompt. I didn't tell it what data to extract from the PDF, how to extract this data. It just figures out, okay, I've got a prompt. Let's first check all suppliers to not create any duplicates. I also didn't instruct it to do that. It figured it out on its own. And then goes through the invoices, extracts all 3 suppliers, creates them one by one in the database, and then goes back and searches the data from the invoices. And the data it extracts from the invoices, it's also defined in the parameters it needs to create these invoices. So it detected it automatically, extracted the data from the PDFs, and then inserted it into the database. And at the end, it just gives a summary of what it has done. And if we check the database, we can see that it extracted all the data, created the invoices, it created the suppliers. And what you can also do, because here in this example, I wanted to keep it very simple. I defined which parameters are required by the tool. But you could take this a step further and give it a tool to ask how the schema of the database looks like. And then it will automatically decide which data it has to extract. So this means you build the workflow once, you connect the MCP once, and then you have someone from your team just add new fields like VAT percent, VAT amount. You don't have to change the prompt, you don't have to change anything. It will just see that these tools require these new parameters and extract it and fill it into the database. But you can think a bit further, what tools you would be able to connect. So for example, you could connect your CRM tool, your invoicing tool, your support ticket tool. And then you would get all the information you need for a client or to take some decision without jumping through 15 tools. You can just be in your Claude desktop and ask what ticket you've got and then get additional information. Okay, this is a very important client. They have a retainer of this and this amount and they send 2 tickets a year. Or this client has very little payments but sends 20 tickets a month. So you can interact differently. And as I mentioned, this was a very, very simple workflow. It took me less time to create the workflows and the integration than it took me to record the video. One small warning when putting MCP servers or webhooks on the internet. Never leave it without authentication. Because if it's without authentication, it means everybody can use it. So if you've got a webhook publicly on the internet, extracting your invoice data, then if somebody finds that link, and this happens, then they will extract your information. If it's invoices, maybe it's not that bad. If it's all your emails, that would probably suck. And you don't want to deal with the data protection announcing a data breach because it's a tough process. Because the thing is, the default setting is no authentication. It's not an N8N problem. It's just that it cannot decide for you if you want or you don't want authentication. There can be a reason where you don't want authentication, but you have to decide this. It's the same thing like you would not leave your door at home open and then blame the building owner that you got robbed. So that's it from my side. We can have some discussions, we can have some drinks, hopefully eat all the sandwiches. We will be planning next N8N events somewhere around September or October. And if you want our contact details, you can just talk to us or you can scan the QR code. You'll find our LinkedIn details, our email address, and get in touch. And yeah, as I mentioned, we will stick around to also have some further discussions. Are there any questions I could try to answer?
So in the previous examples, we saw some workflows calling
Yeah.
tools. Why don't we just instruct Claude, what is our workflow, and give it MCPs and forget about any predefined workflows. This is how I do it, and it works. I don't need anything.
You don't need anything, but how does your Claude then work with your internal tools, or what tools are you using? Because you can use MCP servers from other tools. That's of course.
But I'm just telling the system prompt what is my workflow and what are the tools or MCPs, and it works. I don't need to, configure all of that, connect all of that. It just understands what information needs to be passed to each next step, to each next tool.
But your tools have MCP servers.
Yeah, tools. There are some native tools and MCP servers.
Yeah, but this as you're running on the assumption that everybody's using the tools that have MCP servers.
No.
Because
There
internal.
are some native tools and MCP servers. It's not only.
Yeah. Not sure if I'm following. So, can you give me an example?
Yeah, I have land graph. I can register nodes, which are tools or MCP servers.
Yeah.
And then I have system prompt telling me what is my workflow. Like what tools I usually call in which sequence.
Yeah.
That's it.
And the tools are
So
like.
The system prompt, the LLM, reading by the system prompt, understands what needs to be the sequence, and sometimes it skips some steps. So it's very flexible. It's much more adaptable than building these visual connections between elements.
Well, I think everybody does things differently. So many paths lead to Rome. But I haven't thought of that.
Okay.
I have to say, honestly, I haven't thought of that. And things just change so fast. So things I did a few months ago now seems weird. And so I haven't reached that level yet. Yeah?
So if I understand correctly, anything gives you a possibility to create your own MCP service in case your
Yes.
underlying technology, whatever, does not have an MCP.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Okay. So if you have other tools, you could obviously use them, but in case you just want to insert into a database, basically, this would be a very easy way to accomplish that.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Oh. Yeah, sorry. Let's take. I was always looking at this side, so let's. Yeah.
I was just wondering, as far as the MCP client, can you use other things like Telegram or Slack or whatever to call it, and then send the request to the?
No. So currently, as MCP client, as far as I know, you've got Claude, you've got ChatGPT, you've got Cursor, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, so and others I haven't researched yet, but no, if Telegram decides to create a MCP integration,
Okay.
then you could use it at some point, but currently no.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. In terms of the discussion that was created earlier, what do you think that MCP offers in addition to, like we had OData, we have OpenAPI, and we have all these different kind of specs. And now Anthropic comes up and just says, yeah, we've created like the 14th standard that does the same things as all the others do. So what does MCP offer on top of like function calling based on OpenAPI?
It's just, I mean, I don't have the XKCD comic about this, about the scientists arguing, okay, we have 99 standards, we need one standard to rule them all. Okay, now we have 100 standards.
Yeah.
New standards are coming up. We are using the tools we have at our disposals, and since Claude does MCP, we're using MCP, and the design choice behind it, it's not really something we can influence. So I'll do two more questions, and then we can also chat later. Yeah, please, and then I'll get back to you.
It's not a question, it's
Oh.
more a comment, because in one case you have the tools outside the agent, right? And this actually giving you is flexibility, so you don't have to always build your tools together with the agent.
Okay.
So they are somewhere else, the tools are somewhere else, and everyone can use them. And you can have access to many different tools from your agent.
Awesome, thanks. Yeah, I'd love to continue talking about
Yeah.
this. Thanks.
Okay, and then I'll get also, and then we'll,
Similar to the same thing, but I think MCPs are definitely way better for agentic kind of way of doing things. NA10, to answer your question, NA10 is, I feel like, way more about automations. So if you want data extracted automatically without doing anything, NA10 is way better for that than using claude or anything else. So I feel like that's just the main difference, because NA10 has the ability to make an agent, but it's not really a core function like claude is, or I feel like NA10 is way more for automation side than for agentic stuff. So just different things doing the same thing at the end of the day.
okay, so one last question, then we can get to the chatting.
That just maybe I missed something, like you wrote your own MCP server in this project?
N8N was the MCP server. So you can create an MCP server for every workflow you want within a different MCP server.
So, like, because there is a community, like there is a hub MCP server.
Yes.
Hub. So you
Yeah.
picked from there?
No. So all you do is you add in this MCP server trigger, and you've got an MCP server, and then you connect the tools to it.
So, and because this is also related to DB, did you also experiment with the MCP toolbox? Because that also works with DB. And any difference that you see?
No, I haven't experimented with that. So I just wanted to use something very simple. Just have a MCP trigger and then some database similar thing, in this case C-table in the background, and keep it simple. Yeah.
Yeah, I would like to answer that question that you was asking about Telegram or like Slack or whatever. So because in the existing community that are providing different MCP servers, so this Slack, Telegram or whatever social media platforms, they are providing their servers, and you can write your own small client as a chatbot, and then you can do what you want. Like it's a really flexible. If you go to the MCP servers hub, then you will find really interesting content. Okay, that might help you for you.
Okay, and to close this up, I will, if you don't mind, I will send some feedback via Luma to get some a feedback link to a forum to get some feedback and some requests for next time. And also, if anybody wants to hold a presentation next time, just send me a message. It's terrifying at first. It gets it's fun at the end, yeah. Okay, then. So let's grab some drinks, finish those sandwiches, and thank you. Survived.